two individuals who are going to share their perspectives with regards to coming into schools, working in schools at this time in time of COVID, but also being able to sort of think beyond this immediate time to think about what you might need to do or think about doing as you start preparing for the hiring process, as you start preparing for your next stages in this career. This year will go incredibly quickly, and so I'm thrilled that the two of them have agreed to be with us today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Ms. O'Donnell, who is a principal at Half Moon Bay, and she can tell us a little bit more about herself, and I may have pronounced her name inappropriately, so I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here from my office at Half Moon Bay Public School. You just met Ling. Ling is one of our custodial staff who has basically been the superhero of Half Moon Bay, keeping us all healthy and safe. And it's certainly been a trying time in education, and it's my honor to speak to you today about education and immediate education, but also what principals look for when you come into our schools and what we look for in the candidates that we want working with our children every day. I want to say the plus side of a few things. Plus side of today is I didn't have to find parking downtown. This is awesome. Downtown is really hard when you live in Barrhaven and have a car. So, you know, being able to present from the office is a treat. However, we miss the body language of the staff or the students that we're speaking with. So bear with me if I can't hear you laughing to all my great jokes, but I do appreciate being here virtually, because that's been our world for the last little while. So I'm a principal, and I'm a principal at Half Moon Bay Public School. It's a school of about 950 students, and it's in Barrhaven. It's a school that is 5 years old, so I had the honor of opening the school up a few years ago. And in opening up the school, we really worked together as a community to try to figure out, what do we believe in? What is our mission? Who are we as human beings? And it kind of boiled down to 4 words that we believe in when we created our school. And that is to care, create, collaborate, and be part of a community or the greater community. And so over my career, I've hired about 250 people. Overseas, I was in Kuwait at the American School of Kuwait, and had an opportunity to hire people coming to Kuwait. And also I was at Sir Winston Churchill Public School, and we had a big change in staff when we became a kindergarten grade 8 school, and then Half Moon Bay, we got to hire 60 teachers. So it's pretty amazing that we have the opportunity to create a community that our children can learn and that they can flourish. But I was speaking with your group last year, and you know, I prepared a presentation, and I thought, oh, I'll just pull it out on Thanksgiving Sunday and tweak it a little bit and prepare for you today. And then I realized, oh, COVID hit. And COVID hit, and it became the lens from which we kind of have started this school year. It started way back in March when you were in year 1, when all of a sudden we were principaling and teaching from our couches. We then fast forwarded to the summer of uncertainty and not knowing where we were going to go, to all of a sudden we are back in school with all the protocols that Ottawa Public Health put into place. So it certainly is a different landscape, and it certainly seems different. I know that many of you were in your schools, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and I'm sure that you were surprised by the protective equipment, wearing the medical masks, working with only 1 or 2 cohorts, and when you have 2 cohorts, you get to wear the shield. You have recess without balls or equipment. If you were in kindergarten yesterday, you were sanitizing things all day to make sure that there was no transmission of COVID-19. You also saw maybe how quiet the buildings were without the buzz of all the guest speakers or all the announcements all day, or how many times you have to sanitize as you walked in the building. You were probably surprised. But you probably also were surprised by how appreciative our students are, how happy they are to come to school every day and to learn and to laugh, even if it's behind their shields. They are so pumped to be back at school. You also might be surprised, you may not have heard it, but it's there, how grateful parents are. They are so grateful that every day their children get to go to school. And they, honestly, 99% of them are not taking that for granted. You also might be surprised that every hour we're open, we're ensuring stability and safety and learning for students, but also for the community. You might be surprised before you go to work every morning that you're packing weird things. Okay, do I have the mask? Do I have my sanitizing? Do I have CSA approved goggles or a shield? Do I have a boomerang lunch? Because no longer can we put garbage in our garbage pails. And how are my hands doing when I have to sanitize so many times a day? We're caping up like we've never caped up before to be educators in 2020. And we do that for our students and we do that for our community. So you will see and think differently about teaching. We are now essential workers. We are the superheroes of our community. And honestly, in 28 years of being in education, I have never felt more essential and more important in my role as a principal and an educator. We are into day, I think it's 19 or 20 of the school year when we've had all our students. And fingers crossed, we have not had a positive case of COVID-19 at our school. We have people caping up every day to do their part to make sure that kids get to school every day. We have parents in our community that keep kids at school, keep kids at home when they're not sick. It takes a community, and every day we are open, we are grateful, and every single day I walk into classrooms with my shield and my mask, and I've never been so proud to be an educator. When we look at the mission of our school, to care, so when we think about COVID, that's the lens how we see things through. However, our basic job is still the same. Our job is to care about students, to create, to collaborate with others, and to build a community. And if you think about the word care, where I want you to think about care is I want you to think about care and start with yourself. Care is the core of our work every day, and you are the core of your day. You have to make sure that you're well. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you exercising? Are you maintaining positive relationships? Are you showing up for yourself and your students every day? You know, what does that look like on the ground? Well, you come to work early. You're ready to go. You're ready to be prepared. You're organized. You're dressed in appropriate attire to teach your class. Sometimes that means that when you leave work, you go home and you change into your home clothes. You check your baggage at the front door. What does that mean? We all have lives outside of this building. In fact, in brackets, this morning, I just got my son's negative COVID test at 9 a.m. I put on my coat, I ran to work. We all have stuff going on. We have to keep the baggage at the door. We keep our personal lives at home. We keep our professional lives at work. So when we're upset about things at work, we shouldn't know that. It's like we get back to work, we are there for the kids. We put our phones away. This isn't a time to catch up on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat. And we are fully present for our students. We are fully present for our colleagues. And we're fully present for our community. So teachers, I want teaching students at my school care about their professionalism and look after their well-being. Caring for our students, this is our core business. And we have to guide them to be the best that they can be. So we have to take time to care about them. We're not just teaching them math or science or phys ed. We are caring about them as people, and we're helping them be the best people they can be. So what does that look like? That looks like taking an extra few minutes to walk a student who might be a little bit sad down to recess to find their friend that they couldn't find the day before. This might be asking the question about, how are these stuffed animals? You brought them again to school today. Tell me about them. They must be pretty special to you. Or somebody's lost their glove and taking a few minutes to head down to the lost and found to help them find their glove. Now, COVID world, we don't have a lost and found, but in real life we did. But connecting with our students and making those relationships is a key to what to learn, to help kids learn to the best of their ability. And if you don't like this part of the job, find a different one, because relationships are the most important thing that we do every day. So teachers, I want teaching my students, care about students as people, and do what it takes for my students to be their best person. So we know that this is probably the most creative time in modern history. Well, it doesn't feel creative, but we have to be so creative to teach now. There's no roadmap for what we're doing right now in education. We are actually building a plane in the air as it flies. So how do we be creative at this time? How do we create? That's our mission. And we are, as a school right now, trying to figure that out. In fact, this morning we met as a kindergarten team to think about how do we move away from some of this very independent pencil paper work that kids are doing individually when we're so afraid that kids are going to transmit the virus. So how do we shift from our COVID world and put all the protocols in place to be creative? So listening to students, we want you to be curious, but we also want our students to be curious. What are they interested in? What are they talking about? What connections can you make to the curriculum that are generated from interest? You are that magic weaver. You are that person in listening to the students and creating the magic and creating the conditions for your kids to be successful. The teachers I want teaching my students are curious. And I don't just mean kindergarten teachers. You can be curious in grade 8 and grade 6 and grade 4. And when you're teaching units that perhaps you think, oh, that's a little bit dry, your job is to put and create curiosity and excitement for our kids. We want them and we want you to be lifelong learners and always open to taking risks, making mistakes, and always engaging in the learning journey. So teachers I want teaching my students, they're creative and they have a passion for learning. So students do need to feel safe. So we have to create the conditions for our students to feel safe in the classroom. What does that look like? We want them to reach our potential. And what does safety mean? Safety just doesn't mean a physical safety, but there's also, we have to create that positive learning environment with boundaries. Kids need boundaries. We can't just say, oh, you all decide what you're going to do today. We need boundaries in our classrooms, and we need to create the conditions that all kids are feeling safe. So expectations for students' behavior, they don't happen magically. So when you walk into your associate teacher's classroom and all of a sudden the kids are all doing what they're asked to do and they're lining up in their pods and they're heading out to their zones and they're present and waiting during a fire drill, that's not magic. That's a lot of hard work. And some of it looks invisible. So you have to have amazing classroom structure. You have to create expectations to ensure all students respect themselves and respect others. And you have to really learn how to listen and learn to listen actually to the kids aren't saying anything. It's easy to listen to the kids who are dancing on the table, who have the big personalities that you know everything about their lives. It's like, please don't tell me about your life today. I know everything. What about the kids that aren't saying anything? Why aren't they speaking? Why aren't they talking? They also have stories. So which students in your classroom are invisible? Who are visible? What are your biases? How do you create an equitable classroom that all kids are heard and listened to? So teachers in my school, I want them teaching students to I want our teachers to create safe classroom learning environments where all students are seen and heard and not just the ones who are always talking. So what do you do every day to create that classroom? Every day you leave your classroom ready for the next one. Don't go home thinking I'm gonna get everything planned tonight for tomorrow. Who knows what tomorrow's gonna look like? So really create those conditions for yourself. Have a really successful day. Knowing your students, creating relationships, knowing their interests and their level of abilities when you're planning for students in advance before you go home at night, that really demonstrates your professionalism and your care for your students. So teachers I want teaching my students are organized, plan with students' interests and ability in mind, and they do that in advance. They're not doing it at the last minute. So collaboration is one of our key fundamental components in our mission statement. And it's actually, collaboration is on our learning skills. So progress reports go home November 20th, and teachers will be very keen to get your insights into how kids are learning and what their skills are and their learning skills. And one of those learning skills is collaboration. Now, collaboration is what we do in teaching. My sister, she's an epidemiologist. She doesn't talk to one person all day, and she's really excited about it. She just crunches numbers in her cubicle and now on her couch, and that is a good day for her. My day is spent with 5,000 people coming in and out of the door, kids with questions down the hallways, and we're always collaborating, always. We're always listening, we're always learning, we're always working together. So working with others is key to what we do. It's critical to manage those professional relationships really well. We know that when we are working with students, we keep information confidential. We learn from others who are brilliant at their job, and we're just watching them in awe, saying, I want to be you when I grow up. And there's teachers at my school, I will never be as good as them. They're incredible. We learn from people who have different styles from us. There are so many principals out there that do amazing work, but they're completely different than I am. We can all do amazing work. and we can all do it in a different way. We also know that we're not in our buildings to gossip about each other or to gossip about students or our community. And we keep our Facebook, our Instagram, and our Snapchat and our TikTok appropriate. Remember, students and employers do Google you, and you should Google yourself to see what you see. So we are together. We're doing that alone sometimes in the pandemic, but it is so important that we collaborate. One of our grade 6 teachers was really concerned. She said, progress reports are in a month. What am I going to do about the collaboration, expectation, and learning skills? So she asked her grade 6 students. She collaborated with her grade 6 students on what collaboration means in grade 6 and what they would report on their learning skills. They came up with a whole list of things that they talked about what collaboration looks like in COVID-19 schools, and it was incredible. This opportunity was presented at our staff meeting on Tuesday, and staff just went, oh my gosh, this is so brilliant. Let's hear it from the kids. What do the kids want to work on? What is collaboration to them? And we all created goals based on that. So teachers I want teaching my students work well with others and maintain positive professional relationships in person and in line. We need to ask for help. We need to give help. When we come in the morning early for that day, someone's carrying 6 bags, you say, hey, can I help you? Usually they say, no, I'm good. Offering help. When you offer help to people and you're there for people, every single time you need help, someone is there for you. It's a boomerang. You throw it and it comes back to you. When you listen to others, you learn from others. None of us have all the answers. I was looking at some of your questions there. None of us have all the answers, but you know what most of us do? We say, I don't know, but I'm going to find out and I'm going to get back to you. Every day we learn something new, and we're not here alone. You will also know that you're going to fail a lot, and you are going to learn from your mistakes. My end of the year virtual speech to our grade 6s was, I want you all to fail, F-A-I-L. And then I fell off a log in this video, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, FAIL stands for first attempt in learning. So we want to keep our kids learning all the time. And every attempt that you make in that learning, you're going to make mistakes, but you're going to learn on the journey. So remember that there's no dumb questions. Have the courage to ask when you don't know. Demonstrate strength, confidence, and honesty. That's required to make great teachers. So teachers I want teaching my students, help others and ask for help and learn from failure. It's important to connect with our parents and engage with our parents. Picking up that phone at the beginning of the year or throughout the year and saying, Johnny did a great job. I've made a certificate, put it on the fridge. Asking parents for their input and listening without judgment, they know a lot about their kids and their insights are invaluable. And they are key to the success of their child's emotional and academic journey in education. So thinking about all those examples you're going to hear. We had a student, I've looked at her report card from last year and the year before, she's missed like 120 days of school over the last 3 years. I could judge and say, parent didn't get the kid to school. Well, what's going on? Parents want kids to be at school. So what is happening that we can support so we can get a plan and work together to get that child to school? That 20-minute phone call with that parent, that 10-minute meeting with the Circle of Care team, that conversation with that child could be the point where that child's life changes and that child gets to school a few more days the following month. We magic weave every day. It's important to keep our notes and assessments and anecdotal documentation. It's critical to our job. We can't just make things up in the air. We have to collect data and do really great assessments so we figure out where a kid is at and how do we teach them. Assessment is a part of our job every single day. We have to do it, we have to learn how to do it, and then we revise what we've learned to create the best practices possible for assessment. So teachers I want teaching at my school, they work with our students, staff, and parents to help everyone reach their potential. They take that extra 40 minutes to connect with parents and others to make a difference in the lives of students, and they assess students every single day. So when I hired for Half Moon Bay, I got to hire that very first year for 26 teachers. I looked at creating a diverse school of various educators, but I really, really looked at what makes that staff member unique. We don't want 26 blonde, 51-year-old principals that are people, women with who like sparkles in the school. That would be a really boring school if everyone was like me. I like to think of myself as quite entertaining, but at the end of the day, you don't want everyone like me. I need the person that loves coding. I need the person that loves to run marathons. I need the staff member that thinks model trains is the coolest thing ever. So if you bake cookies and they're gluten-free, or you like to solve quantum physics equations, it's good. You need to have passions. You need to bring those passions to your school. You want kids to connect to a variety of different educators. So be yourself. And I think that's really important in education is don't try to be someone else. Be you, because you're great. So teachers I want teaching at my school have a passion and want to contribute to our school to make that culture a place where everyone belongs. So creating a positive classroom community is key to belonging. So look around the school. What is happening when you go to school next week? If you're on Wednesdays, if you're head in, what is happening? Well, right now it looks a little bit different. But what is important to that school? What can be reflected, the students' passions? How could that be reflected on the walls of the classroom? Is care and respect evident in those rooms? Does everyone have a job to do? Does everyone feel like they belong? So it's up to you, and you can do that as a student teacher. It's up to you to set that tone for that learning environment when you are teaching. It doesn't happen magically. It's hard work, it's planning, and it's trial and error. So thinking about that job, you want those kids when they miss your class to cry when they were absent, to come in, and I don't mean literally cry, but say, I missed your class yesterday and I heard it was a great class. I really wanted to be there. You want to create learning opportunities for your kids that they don't want to miss, that they want to come to school every day. Teachers I want teaching my students care about their learning environment and care that students are there every day in their class. So we are part of a greater community, and I think that COVID-19 has really illustrated that clearly to all of us. We are just a tiny little school amongst the whole world, and we're all in it together. The whole world is joined together by COVID-19 and working through creating conditions so students can safely come to school. So we are global citizens, and it's really important to connect our students to the community. It's not just about them. It's not just about the class. It's not just about the school, but it's just about the whole world. And when you think about the littlest kids, they can make a difference. The 4-year-olds last year, 2 years ago at our school, we didn't get to do it last year, created a kindergarten market where they planted plants, they baked cookies, they created little keychains, and they made $6,000 for our community. So the littlest kids with your magic weaving can be stewards of the planet and stewards of the community. So teachers I want teaching my students make connections to the class, to the school, and to the global community. They expect extraordinary from our students and provide them the structures and guidance to excel. So care, create, collaborate, community is our mission, and it's the lens through which I see education here at Half Moon Bay. Teachers I want teaching my students do say these words and live with these actions in their classrooms, the hall, the staff rooms, the yard, the coffee shops, online, and they also know that this hard work cannot be done alone. It's hard work, and sometimes we fail, and that's an okay thing. Teachers I want teaching at my school are superheroes, and they cape up literally every day for our students. I want to wish all of you the best of luck in your teaching journey. It is an amazing, amazing job, and we need each other. Oh my gosh, I get teary every time I say this. You guys are in the best job you can ever imagine, and I have never been so proud to be in education, and I want to wish you the best of luck in your educational journey.
So thank you.
Sorry for getting teary.
Hey, emotionality is a really good thing.
I know.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Tricia, and then we'll open up for questions. I see a lot of thank yous there, Mrs. Sparkles. I certainly know the amount of sparkles that you have in your office in the school. But I'll pass on to Tricia to share, and then we'll come back to questions.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Tricia Scott. I am a teacher with the OCDSB. I've been teaching for 25 years. And I have taught pretty well everything from K to 8, English and French over the years. I actually started off when I was in your shoes as an intermediate senior French and phys ed teacher. And if you had told me 26 years ago that I'd be teaching grade 2 and loving it, I would have told you were crazy. The reason I'm telling you this is that I want you to keep your mind open to all the different possibilities that lie ahead for you in education. And what you think you weren't meant to do or weren't cut out for, you find out you actually were cut out for it. So keep your mind open. I have many hats in education. Most of the time I'm a grade 2 teacher here at Richmond Public School. Thank you, Tracy, for giving me the chance to do this today. I got to take my mask off for a little bit at school. I believe there are a few of you out there who actually are here on your placements. So I look forward to meeting you next week when you come back. Another one of my hats is I am the proud seconded professor for the ICI cohort this year. So hello and shout out to all my 3121 students out there. Thank you guys for being so patient with me as we navigate this online world of teaching. And I know for a lot of us, it's tricky because teachers, for the majority of us, we're people, and we'd rather be in front of a person talking and doing than doing it through a computer screen. So I know it's it'll take a little bit of learning. I'm also a student this year. I'm taking an additional qualification course. So learning never ends, whether you're on whatever side of the desk that you're on. As a teacher with 25 years experience, I have had the wonderful fortune to have had 24 student teachers come through my classroom. I love having you in my classroom. I learned just as much from you as from me. And a shout out to my student teacher from last year, Ariane, I know you're out there somewhere. I'm actually using her science unit from last year that we didn't get to do the science unit I need to teach this year. So I'm using her excellent lesson plans from last year. My view of it is I see you as like an extra resource in our classroom, and it builds that team collaboration so much better that the more of us that we can work together with these children, the better off the children are going to be and their learning is going to be. It is tricky with COVID, so we'll figure that out. One of my colleagues and I were saying last week that we were feeling kind of weird. We were feeling kind of lost. And what we realized is that we didn't have our student teachers in the building with us yet. And we're so used to having you guys in our buildings that the delay this year kind of had us off a little bit as well. So now that you're in, life seems a little more normal. Not normal yet, but we'll get there hopefully, in a global pandemic. I know this year is going to be different. I know you lost a lot of classroom time last year. I actually remember telling my student teacher just before March break, I said, if we lose some days after the break, don't worry about it. We will, we'll get this, figured out. I was envisioning what would happen if we went on strike. I never envisioned a global pandemic. And just never ever went there. So whatever was lost last year, you're now a second year student. So as a second year in my classroom, there are some things that I'm expecting out of you. So one of those things is definitely, like Ashlyn said, was the building the connections with the kids. And it's tricky doing it behind a mask and behind a shield, behind their little window shields that they have. It is tricky, but it doesn't take away from the need to have those connections. I also need you to kind of take the initiative. You're second years now, so I will let you know what curriculum expectations that you're going to cover, and then you're going to run with it. And I expect you to ask questions. I expect you to ask me why I did a certain thing. How am I going to use that for an assessment piece? How am I going to get that one student who's struggling in an area? How do I get them moving forward? I want you to ask yourself the same questions as well. but it's got to come from you. So you need to be the one asking questions. Don't wait for me to give you all that information. I also want you to look to strive for a balance this year. Like I said, I know it's really tricky. You're doing all of your learning online. And one of the things that our focus is with staff and with our students is everybody's, emotional well-being. And so even though you lost from last year, don't feel that you need to cram like everything from last year's practicum like into this year's practicum and build yourself up to an unrealistic expectation of what you can do. Take the time for yourself, take the time to breathe, work some mindfulness. If you're not doing it in the classrooms, work it into your daily routines. Because then when you're here, if you've been taking care of you, when you're here, there's 100% of you here. And that's what that's what they need from you. So as a second year student, I also want you to look at the classroom and see what you can bring to that classroom. What can you contribute? How can you help? And who you could make a connection with. And I don't expect student teachers to come in and have the exact, framework that I have, even approaching a student or a subject or whatever. So bring what you are passionate about and use that passion to create something new in my classroom. For a lot of you have way more coding experience than I do, that's for sure. So with the new math curriculum, one of the suggestions I could give all of you out there is if that coding is part of your passion and something that interests you, dive into it, prepare some lessons, find some activities that could be done virtually or in class or with or without access to technology, and bring that into your classroom and let your associate teacher know, like, I've got this unit and I want to run with it. And if you can do that in my room, I love it. One thing I'm suggesting to you is when you're planning units or lessons or activities, now is the time to take that risk. Now is the time to try something you're not super comfortable with. It is the best time to step out of your comfort zone because you have me or your associate teacher there for you. So you want to try things, and then if they don't work, then you reassess. As the associate teacher, when I look over your ideas and your plans, if there's something that I can see you're going to go completely off the rails with, I'll redirect you. But if you're not, super comfortable teaching math, or you're not super comfortable teaching music, try it out. Like I said before, keep your mind open to different possibilities. You may find that there's a subject area or a grade that you were more inclined to teach than you originally thought. I never thought I was creative enough to teach primary. And now I teach without textbooks, without resources, because apparently I have a whole lot more creativity in my head than I thought. So I am happy to tell you that many of my former student teachers or students at the faculty have found themselves positions. My student teacher from last year is in a grade 1 LTO this year. And lots, I really like when it's supply day and I'm leaving, that one of my former student teachers or one of my former students gets to be my supply teacher. I like having that, continuing that connection after the fact. So I can't wait to hear from some of you when you tell me that you've got your own classroom next year or you've got a long-term occasional assignment. And feel free to email me and ask me for the tips or suggestions. Or do you remember when we did this book? What did we do when you get your first position? Good luck this year. I know it's different. I know it's not what you envisioned when you signed up, but that doesn't mean that it's still not going to be great. If you can, come out with a smile on your face and a positive attitude and at the end of the year say, I did all of this wonderful teaching and I made all these wonderful connections with children and I did it during a global pandemic. So if you can do that, the world is your oyster. You can do so much afterwards. So like I said, good luck. And if you need anything, I'd love to help you out.
Thank you very much, Tricia. I'll open up to questions from the floor, either from the floor or you can write your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to all of them. I know there was a question with regards to if there was one book that would be a good suggestion to read. What might that be? And Asling and Trisha, maybe you can both reach into to your knowledge base and say what was the one that book that you might want to recommend.
And I think choosing books for other people is always difficult. If it was my husband, it would be sports biographies. But for me, I always look to read books in an area that I feel that I have to grow. And right now I'm exploring the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. So really looking at racism and systemic racism in our schools and really evaluating bias that I have as a white female of privilege and what does that look like in our schools. So there we had a little book club last year and that's the reading that I'm doing right now. So I'm in the middle of that. So that's where I would start. What's an area that you think, oh gosh, I really have to grow?
Okay. Trisha?
I'm sure Trisha has some great stuff too.
Same thing. We've done. We're doing the book club, and the title of the book is completely escaping me. But on again on equity and inclusion in the classroom. So that was one of my summer reads. I'm kind of math is kind of it has become my passion. So a lot of my books have been from on the mindset combination of mindset and mathematics. So a lot of the Jo Boaler and Marion Small books are good with me. That was a question from last year. I should have remembered it so I could have had a better list for it.
Well, this is one that I'm just about to embark on. It was recommended by a friend, but it's talking about fostering resilient learners, strategies for creating a trauma-sensitive classroom. So through the pandemic, we know that some of our kids have had trauma, students and staff and parents. And this is a book that was recommended to me that is about to be cracked open. I really find that we are in the middle of this pandemic and it's learning so much and we need a bit of time to reflect on what has happened because we're right in the middle of it. But I really feel that we're seeing some trauma that's happened and it's presenting in different ways in our classroom. And so I think that's an area of learning that I need to explore. So this is something that I'm going to start reading.
I just want to recommend that that book is one of the books that Jess Whitley had recommended last week after our trauma-informed session. So some of the teacher candidates might be actually taking it up and reading it as well. One of the questions is, what advice would you give for teacher candidates as they start to prepare for interviews for teaching positions? And we know that the interview process usually starts in February, March, and it may be even earlier at this point.
I can start. I think what is really beneficial is if you have a journal or a file folder that you throw things into, just so you can start collecting evidence and stories of your journey. And as a principal, I always look for people who they're not just coming in and giving the buzzwords of what they learned in Teachers College, like, oh, I'm a lifelong learner. That's their words. What you really want to have is evidence of the work that you've been doing and your journey as an educator. I think knowing as well and be confident in the fact that the people who are interviewing you know that you are a new teacher. We are not expecting you to sound like somebody who's been teaching for 15 years. But we want to know that willingness to take risks, as Tricia said, to try new things, to talk about there are failures. And if you say, yeah, that lesson really bombed, but this is what I learned from it. So the next time I did it, this is what happened and I knocked it out of the park. So we really want authentic, honest interviews where people give examples of things that actually have happened to them. There might be a question too that what would you do in this scenario? And it may not have happened to you. So you have to be prepared to be creative and say, this didn't happen. However, I'm aware that my student teacher or my associate teacher talked about that, or I did, I have reflected on that if it was ever to happen to me as well. So really keeping your thoughts together in some sort of way that you organize so you can keep reflecting on your practice. Then the interview won't be a surprise. I look at preparing for an interview. It's not preparing for an interview. It's just giving yourself an opportunity to collect and force you to reflect on where you are as an educator. And so it's not prepping for that. It's just really getting a sense of who you are at that time.
One thing I could say is, like Ashlyn said, preparing and explaining your story. But so the two student teachers who were in my room last year learned a lot, and had my suggestion to them was, even though I was handling the difficult situations, was to take notes on those difficult situations and take note on what strategies we were using, what resources we were using in those situations. I know a lot of students, you get into a classroom and it's heaven. You've got, 18 children that don't seem to have really any issues. They do all their work and life's a dream. And then you get to an interview and, they're asking about a situation where things didn't work well and you haven't experienced it. So when you hear that, across the hall, that there's a certain student that's having issues, or there's been situations, there is a way to ask about how we're handling that without doing the gossiping about what's going on. So ask about what strategies are they doing to help that child? Or if I was in that room, what would you want me to do? What do I need to do? So that you're opening up your lens wider than that one little classroom. Like, look at what's going on in the school. It is trickier this year without you being able to go into lots of different classrooms. And because that's always been my suggestion near the end of a practicum is, go and spend an hour in this room, an hour in this room, see what you like, see what you notice. So it is a little trickier in COVID, but keep your eyes open and your ears open to what's going on out there, and ask about what, if you were in that situation, what would you do?
I think the other thing you want to add is just reflecting on your philosophy of education. What is it? What do you believe in? What do you stand for? And, I look back to 15 years ago when I had written it at the front of my journal, and at the beginning of every year, I look at it. Is this still true, Aisling? Do you really still believe that, you are student-centered and you make decisions based on what's best for students? Or is that garbage now that you're administrator? So really looking and evaluating, saying, this is what I'm willing to stand on that hill and support every single time. So thinking about what your philosophy is, that will change over time. Your philosophy just at a teacher's college is going to be different than what it is in 15 years, because you're going to know more and you're going to have more wisdom and more experience. But, you probably have an assignment where you have to write your philosophy. It's actually a really good assignment. Who gives you a chance to talk about yourself and spend a few hours reflecting on who you are in your practice? Because this is essential, because this is the essence of who you are as an educator and what you stand up for. So I would say refining your philosophy of education is really important, and reading through it before you head into your interview.
Thank you very much. One of the other questions is, I'll read it verbatim. I'm interested in your thoughts for teacher candidates as we prepare for potential online teaching. I love being able to bring care, collaboration, and community in the classroom. What are the pros and cons, or is there anything different when online? And certainly we're all learning how that plays out. So I'll leave that question for you.
Well, and I think what has been amazing about educators is how they turned on a dime in March, and within 2 weeks, they went from people couldn't even turn on the computer for Google Meets, I was one of them, to be able to offer online learning. I would say that every educator agrees, we do better in person. And we don't think that the virtual world will ever replace what we do in the classrooms with our students. I don't know of anyone who said that is the case. However, we've recognized very quickly what components of what we can do in the classroom can be done virtually that at least gives kids a sense of that connection. So we have examples from our school over March until June where teachers did make those connections with students, and what they realized is creating that classroom community online is important, because that privacy, that safety, that learning, how to connect to the computer, how to connect to the Google Meets, all of that, how important that is. And creating that online community is just as important as creating that community in the classroom. Probably more so because you have less control. So really starting with the basis of what do you do when you go into your classroom first and you have that first teaching job. It's like, oh my gosh, this is all of mine. Where do I get the markers? Well, now virtually you have to think about, this is my classroom, it's online. How do I set it up? How do I set it up for safety, emotional safety? How do I teach kids how to use the tools? And how do I set it up that I can differentiate for my students? What we found was that caring part had to be done when it was smaller groups. I don't know if Tricia found this, but our teachers started off with Google Meets in a large group, which can work for kind of, I'm giving all of you information about what you need to learn. It was harder when kids were asked to give input and speak on the during the Google Meet. Where we found the real learning happened and that caring collaboration could happen a lot better was when it was small group meets, and that was set up at different times during the day that the group of 4 would meet. The teacher would work with them, they would get feedback and learning that way. So we also recognize that none of us are experts in this. So in our school, we have 60 teachers. 11 of them are currently virtual, and we have a virtual campus out in the portables, and we see them once in a while. They are so excited to do yard duty because they get to go outside again, and they're like, oh, please give me yard duty outside. But what we are is we're learning from them. So we actually set up last week, kindergarten, primary, and the junior virtual teachers are teaching our in-person teachers the tricks of the trade when it comes to virtual teaching, because we are flying the plane and building it at the same time here. So it is an ongoing learning experience. And I know Tricia talked about how amazing it is when you can actually go to classrooms and see what's happening in the classroom. What you could do, and think of creatively, could you do some of that virtually? Could you ask other teachers, any chance I could see your Google site? Any chance I could see your Google Classroom? I'd love to learn how to set that up. So knowing that there's expertise in the building, you may not be able to sit beside them and learn, but there are other ways. Now we're learning that we can be efficient with technology as well.
I think one of the things we learned quickly, like when we went online in the spring, was like Ashlyn said, those large groups were good for general instructions, but where I had the most connections with was when I had the small groups. And we did a lot of, we kind of let the kids in some areas take the lead and what they were showing me they were interested in. And one of my little boys kept saying, Miss Scott, I've been practicing this book. Can I read it to the class? And which prompted the next week we did a story time, and whoever wanted to come. And a lot of them were, you know, under blankets, on a pillow. I had a lot of sideways faces because the iPads were on their side, and we read stories. When I read a chapter book in the class, they're allowed to lie down. The rule is you're not allowed to snore. So I would read to them. And I continued doing our Charlotte's Web chapter book reading and recording videos. Thank goodness I have a teenage son at home who was able to help me with some of that technology when we switched. So I think we kind of put the curriculum aside for the first few weeks, and we just made that online connection with our children. So if we do have to go back to, you know, to virtual, that would definitely be what the priority for me would be, was setting up that connection. And which is why I was so happy that we were coming back in September, because if we do have to go back, I now have that connection with my students from being in class. And but I think the connection piece kind of trumps the curriculum at the beginning for sure.
I just wanted to add a really interesting situation. My granddaughter was in 4-year-old kindergarten last year, and her teacher, the team of the teachers and the EAs and the ECEs that worked in the school, they did a drive-by drop-off of bubbles at the end of the year, just to sort of, social distance, but be able to say face-to-face, we care for you, have a great summer. So there are lots of amazing ways in which teachers, went out of their way to make those connections, to, do the things that they normally do in classrooms. it was the highlight of her school year to see her teacher after, after a period of time where she only had seen her virtually. So it's kind of interesting how people find those ways. But I thought that was interesting.
Well,
Sorry.
and one of the virtual, I was just going to jump in on that. One of the virtual teachers who started with the group contacted all the parents and said, we're having a social distance class visit at the local park. And so before she started teaching them virtually, she met them at the Half Moon Bay Park and said hi to them all, I'm your teacher. And then she started teaching them online the next day. So, following the OPH protocols, the Ottawa Public Health protocols, of course, and that's the lens which we live our lives by. But certainly there are ways to be so creative and connecting to kids.
Good. Sorry, there's 2 more questions, and
Okay.
there are 2 more questions. So the first question is, how do principals and administrators perceive teachers who are involved in political activism in their community?
That's a great question. I think that as an administrator, you want people to be passionate and you want people to support their community and make our world a better place. I think the only caution I would give is remembering that we have the Ontario College of Teachers, and as professionals, we have to make sure that we are following the law and we are abiding and law-abiding citizens. So as educators, people are always watching us at the grocery store, when we're at the local bar, what we put on Facebook. So I think we have to remember that everything that we do, we are a teacher and we are subject to the Ontario College of Teachers, and we have to make sure that we are abiding by the law. I'm thrilled when we have people that actually care about the environment or care about going to rallies that support the lives of everyone being better. I think that we just have to remember that we are teachers and that we're law-abiding citizens.
And the last question is,
the technology question.
About taking courses showing that, that you're engaged in ongoing learning with regards to technology. Benefit, not a benefit?
Well, what I would say is the last thing you want to see at the end of an interview is someone pulling out their portfolio and showing you all the courses that they've taken, right? So the courses that you've taken, that's great. But I'm not really interested, I know that I don't need to sound mean because I do care, but not really interested in seeing all the courses they've taken. However, putting that in there and weaving that in a question that you might be answering about differentiation and saying, I took this course and I learned this in this course and applied it in the classroom is fine. That shows that you're a lifelong learner, but I certainly wouldn't just lay out everything that I've done and as a sort of isolated certificate that I would weave it into my responses.
So on that note, I'd really like to thank you, the both of you. I know that you've got lots to do today, and I appreciate the amount of time that you've taken out of your busy schedules. Great to see you virtually. I hope to see you face-to-face sometime this year. But if there's anything that we can do for the work that you're doing, to support the work that you're doing, please let us know. Have a great day.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate being here.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everybody.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. And as you head into the weekend, have a great weekend.